Welcome to my riding journey. I have done one of these videos before, about 3 years ago, but I thought now we've hit 10,000 subscribers, I would reintroduce myself and tell you a little bit more about me and my journey with the horses. When I've done this before, in the early days on this channel, it didn't get many views, but I only briefly went over everything. So this is my full riding journey, but also thank you so much for 10,000 followers. I am absolutely over the moon with this, and I've always said that I will give back to you in some way or shape or form, because it's because of you that I'm able to say that I've achieved a goal that I never knew I had. I will work that out soon on what we can do, how we're going to do it. But yeah, 3 years on this channel now and 10,000 subscribers is absolutely overwhelming. I can't thank you all enough. I'm Karen, a 41-year-old amateur home-produced self-taught horse rider from the UK with a dream of going to Royal International Horse Show or Horse of the Year show on one of my 4 Welsh Section D horses. I'm a mum to 3 boys. Jamie is 22, Adam is 20 and Lewis is 15. I'm also a nan to 2. Kai is 4 years old and Colby is 2 years old. I rent my own yard on the Bedfordshire borders, and it is a basic yard. We have a few stables, we have fields, bark chip arena that we've recently put in to try and exercise the horses more, but there is no electric or running water on this yard. We get the water from the neighbour's tap, and the electric comes from a generator. So I don't have all the big singing and dancing facilities which will make my dream easier. So I do feel I have to work harder to achieve my dreams than some people, but that's not going to stop me from trying to reach this goal. So my journey with horses did not start until I was 16 years old. I didn't live round here. I lived further out with my family, my mum, my dad, and there was 4 kids. My older brother Alan, me and Marie, my twin sister, and my younger sister Emma. And the only interaction I had as a youngster with horses was when we went to my grandparents' house on a weekend. They had land outside the back of their back garden, but they'd turned it into an allotment. But behind their land was a horse and a donkey. So every time we went to my grandparents, we'd take a carrot from their allotments and go and give it to the horse and the donkey. They were called Thunder and Lightning, but no one ever knew which was what. So that was my only interaction with horses, giving it a carrot once a week. And I had no desire, no dream. Family's not horsey, nothing. Horses was never part of my life. And then suddenly my dad left. My mum couldn't afford the house. We got evicted, and the council, we'd bought our house, but she couldn't afford the mortgage. So the council rehoused her over here. And where we lived, we're on top of a big field where we moved to, and all kids used to congregate on this field and play football, rounders, everything. You know, back 25 years ago, we all used to congregate and play games. And that is where I met my partner, Steve. So I met Steve from playing out in the field and just got to know him. And then one day he said, "Oh, do you want to come down and see my horses?" So I was 16, he's slightly older than me, so he was about 19 at the time. his stepdad's yard was like walking distance from my house. We used to walk down there, see his horses. They are a family of driving horses. That's what they predominantly done, showed driving horses. They dabbled a little bit, the kids did, in hand showing, but nothing spectacular. It was mainly driving horses. So Steve had a black Welsh cross stallion called Spud, driving horse. So he really only knew how to walk and trot, because driving horses aren't typically taught to canter. But his horse could ride as well. So, you know, Steve had broke it to ride himself. So I learnt the basics of walk and trot on his driving stallion. But then it comes to learning how to canter. Luckily, his stepdad had some other horses at the yard that were loaned out to two lovely women. But they helped me learn to canter. One of the horses, if you rode her down to the bottom of their field, again, his stepdad didn't have an arena, but if you rode her down to the bottom of the field, she would automatically canter up to the stables. Not nastily at all. It was a nice steady canter, but that's how I learnt to canter. I didn't know how to ask for canter because this horse would just go. But that's how I learnt to canter. So not long after that, Steve went out with his stepdad one day and they come back with a horse for me. He'd bought me a horse. He'd bought me a Chestnut 4-year-old unbroken Welsh Section D, Goff's Oak Lady Jane. She was absolutely beautiful. I was obsessed with that mare. But I've never had a horse that is broken to ride. Well, one, but not completely. I'll get to her in a minute. So yeah, unbroken Chestnut mare. Steve and his family have broken horses to drive before. Steve just gets on and rides them. He was fearless back then. So breaking her to ride wasn't an issue for them. So that's what we done. Broke her to ride, broke her to drive. We had so much fun with that mare. Lovely. Never put a foot wrong. So by this time, Steve had moved into my mum's house with us and we decided we wanted to be self-sufficient basically. So we went and found a field to rent. So we rented it with a friend. We took baby Jane to this field. The friend had their horse. It was all great. We were on our own yard now. Just a field, nothing spectacular or anything, but it was also within walking distance to a horse show. I'd seen horse shows, how they run, because we'd been with the family to the driving shows. So we went and watched this horse show one day that was now like within walking distance from us. And I decided I wanted to try the ridden showing with Lady Jane. So we found out when the show was going on and we took her over there. But I was clueless. Driving horses back then, you platted them all up. So I turned Lady Jane out like a driving horse, her mane plaited, red ribbon in the mane and everything. And of course I come last, because that's not how mountain and moorlands should be turned out for the ridden. But I didn't know that. I had the time of my life doing this ridden show with baby Jane. But, you know, I had fun. But I still wasn't hooked on ridden showing back then. We just had fun with my new horse. So a couple of months later, she got hurt somehow on her chest. Vets come out and said ideally she needs stabling to keep it clean and let the wound heal. So we went back to Steve's stepdad's yard so she could go in the stable and heal. We gave up that field. My friends kept it on and got other friends in. So we went back to Steve's stepdad's yard. We were there for a little bit before I then found out I was now pregnant with my eldest son, Jamie. So Steve's stepdad basically told us you can't have horses and kids, and we had to sell her. So that's what we done. It broke my heart because she was my everything. I'd had a tough upbringing. You know, we had the family life, my dad left, and then life went very difficult. We didn't have money at all. So now, you know, I've got baby Jane and I've got to now get rid of her because I was pregnant. It absolutely tore me apart, but I done what we thought was right. And I sold her, continued my pregnancy, and later on we come to have Jamie. So between selling baby Jane and having Jamie, life at my mum's house was hard because we kept being evicted, basically. As much as we financially put in as much as we could back then, we kept getting evicted. So me and Steve, again, trying to be independent, we bought our first flat. So although it was hard to sell baby Jane, now we understand it was needed to save the money, buy the flat, get a house, have a baby. But Jamie was, 3 months old, and I desperately wanted a horse again. We still had horses we could play with because Steve's stepdad still had horses, so we could still be in the horse world. But I didn't have my own horse, and I was twiddling my thumbs a little bit. A few months into having a new house and a new baby, I had got itchy fingers and wanted another horse. So we started looking through, like back then it was like the horse magazine, Horse and Hound, adverts for horses. And one day we went to a car boot sale, just as you do as young parents, and we saw a horse advertised there, and she was also kept in the field behind. So we got speaking to the owners about her. She was a 2-year-old chestnut mare, Irish draft cross Haflinger, absolutely gorgeous. They'd done the bare minimum handling with her, and they wanted £400 for her back then. This is before horse prices went crazy. But of course we didn't have £400, and my family hasn't really been supportive of the horses. Not in a bad way, but they never had horses. They knew nothing about horses. My dad has only ever watched me ride once, and my mum, sadly, we lost her last year, but she's never seen me ride a horse. They'd seen pictures, posts that I'd put on Facebook, that sort of thing, but they weren't horsey. I couldn't ask them to help us financially. My twin sister has come to a few shows. She's a bit more helpful. She's not horsey at all. She used to come to the shows to help with the kids more than the horses. But my grandparents were extremely supportive of my dreams with horses. So we went over to see my grandparents and asked them if they would lend us the £400 to buy her, which they did. So the next day we went and picked up Jeannie. The only yard that we could take her to was Steve's stepdad's yard, because we had nowhere else to go. Our friend that was at the field that we rented with them was already looking for somewhere else, because where it was situated was hard work. So they were looking for somewhere else. So we took her back to Steve's stepdad's yard, which he wasn't too happy about because he's the one who told us we can't have kids and horses. We knew it was going to be hard work, but we were determined to do this. Steve, although he doesn't ride now, he's always had horses in his life, so he was still into wanting the horses as well. So we took her back there, couldn't stay there long, but as I say, my other friend was looking for another yard. And one day he stumbled across this yard. But there was a catch. We had to pay the person that was already renting this yard out of this yard. She wanted to go somewhere else that had better facilities for what she wanted, but she didn't have the deposit she needed to move on. So she said to us, if we wanted this yard, we had to pay her a deposit, basically. So between our friend and us, again, we went to my grandparents, who kindly gave us our half of the deposit. So we got this yard. That was 20 odd years ago. And we were in here with our friend. He bought his horse and we brought Jeannie down here. We also did bring one horse from Steve's stepdad's yard down here. So there was 3. So if you took one riding, the other one didn't go mad. Bob was just 2-year-old, not doing anything. So he come down here for the grazing because we had a hell of a lot more fields back then than we do have now. We had, if we go out here to this field, the neighbour's garden went down to that fence, and this bit was all ours. It was all open and it went that way. We had, I've got to say, it must be about 15 more acres that way. But the river is also just behind these trees. So those fields were a bit boggy. We didn't really use them much, but we had a hell of a lot of yard, 10 stables here. They were all derelict when we first got here. We had to do a hell of a lot of maintenance here to put the stables back up, get them usable, and basically all the fencing needed replacing and doing. So it was a lot of work for us to do. So we've got this yard, done loads of the maintenance. Our friend, he done loads of the building and everything, and it was all going good. We had Jeannie, we had Bob, and he had his horse Blaze here. Absolutely perfectly fine. And then I found out I was pregnant again with Adam. All perfectly fine. You know, I felt we could bring kids and horses into the mix together, because I've done it with Jamie now. Jamie was like 18 months old when we had Adam. So everything was fine until Steve's stepdad again said we can't do horses and kids, and he took Bob away from us. It was fine. Bob was his, so he took Bob away from us. So it was just Blaze and Jeannie here. I was, as I say, pregnant with Adam, and our friend decided he wanted to give up horses. And did we want Blaze? They'd made the decision that day. They wanted to cut ties and go that day, basically. So we got Blaze. I didn't pay anything for him. So we had Jeannie and Blaze. Blaze was a part breddy traditional cobby thing, something not my ideal horse, but we had him, and Jeannie was unbroken, so that was fine. We were just lunging her whilst I was pregnant, but Blaze rode, and we wanted to keep him in work. So whilst I was pregnant, I kept riding Blaze, but then Jeannie didn't like being on her own, because years ago we could hack from here. The hacking, as soon as we get across that main road, is amazing. And we used to be able to hack along that road perfectly fine. So when I used to take Blaze out, Jeannie would get upset. So we started looking for another horse. I'm pregnant and we're looking for another horse. And we went and saw this grey Connemara mare. I think again, they didn't want too much money for her. The owner had an injury to their shoulder and Molly hadn't been ridden for 2 years. Broken to ride, slightly older. I think she was about 8 or 9 when we bought her, but she hadn't been ridden for 2 years. So we were really interested in her. And I got speaking to the owner and we just said, like, we need to get the funds. Like, we'd got some money towards her. We'd started understanding to be financially responsible now because of having the horses. So we had some funds, but we had to wait for some more. And the owner went, no, it's fine. Give me what you've got and take Molly. I want her to have a good home. As I say, the owner was injured. She couldn't do the horse. She was paying someone else to do the horse on the livery yard. So we took Molly and brought her home. Of course, I then went on to have Adam. I had Adam midnight, well, 10 past midnight one night. 8 o'clock that next morning, Steve went on his HGV test. Passed his test and our whole life changed considerably financially overnight. Suddenly we got 2 kids, 3 horses, and his wages had basically doubled overnight. So life, although busy, got financially easier. So we had the horses, had Adam, broke Jeannie to ride. She was your typical chestnut mare, moody, everything. She had some buck on her, but she taught me so much. So over time we sold Blaze because, as I say, he wasn't the type of horse that we wanted. But we went to Wales. Another friend of ours had connections in Wales. I wanted to go back to the Welsh cobs, the Welsh D's, because of Baby Jane, the first horse I'd ever had. So he had connections in Wales. So we went down there one day and we fell in love with a black stallion, black colt he was back then, Darcy. That reminded me so much of Spud, Steve's first horse that I learnt to ride on. So we bought Darcy. Our friends bought Duke. They were half brothers, black stallions. So we brought them back home and another friend now rented this yard with us. Absolutely fine. Loved it. Molly, we'd got her riding by now. She was incredible. Ride, drive. She was the most perfect horse you could ever ask for. Kids are growing up and she was starting to teach them to ride. And so then we bought the kids ponies for them to learn to ride on. And I'd started doing a bit of ridden showing with Jeannie and Molly. Jeannie was part bred. There wasn't much that I could do with her because part breds back then, there was no routes to go anywhere with them. I could just do local shows with her, but we had so much fun. We done cross countries. I could jump that horse because she'd go to that jump. There was no stopping her. We'd get over that jump. Had so much fun. And Molly took me into the ridden showing side of things because she was a full Connemara. So we done some little local shows. I dabbled in what was Chiltern and Thames back then, which would be the likes of like Equefest and Sunshine Tours now. You had to qualify to get there. So we'd done that a bit with Molly. And then we got Darcy the stallion, who, as he got older, broke him to ride. He was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I wanted to do dressage with him. That was my goal, dressage with him, ridden showing with Molly. So time went on. My other friend decided he wanted to leave the yard. And again, left Duke here. So we put Duke out on loan to another friend of mine. So Duke, I'd never got attached to. He was never my horse. I never felt any emotional attachment to him. Lovely horse. But my friend was looking for a loan, so she had him. Eventually, she then went on to buy Duke. So we had these horses, and we've now got a yard on our own. Loads of land, far too much grass, and 10 stables. So we went back to Wales and we bought another Welsh Section C this time. So we started doing the shows with him. He was 6 months old when we bought him. And that's when I was doing the in-hand showing with him, and I fell in love with the in-hand showing. So his journey with that started, and we done really well. Molly, the Connemara that we'd got, amazing horse. Neighbours just down by the bottom field fell in love with her because they can see our back field where we used to ride all the horses from their kitchens. They used to see us just getting on, having fun, the kids having fun. And they're not old people, but they're older than me. And they fell in love with her. So we decided Molly was too good because I had Darcy, the young black stallion, and Lucky, the other stallion. Molly and Jeannie, that was riding. Molly was so good you could leave her for weeks on end and just jump on her. We decided to sell her to the neighbours. So she went off onto another yard. We still kept in touch. They kept her until her last days. And the neighbours are still there. We still speak to them and see them and everything. So that's when my journey with the in-hand started. I started doing dressage with Darcy and in-hand with Lucky. Looking back now, Lucky is not your traditional, typical Welsh Section C. He was on the finer side. So again, we only got so far with him in our journey before he wasn't the correct type for what we wanted. So we then looked to sell him whilst looking for another horse. So we bought Dodger, Palomino, Welsh Section D. He was lovely. So Lucky got sold. Darcy, in the end, we sold him to another friend of mine. And so we sold Lucky. We now had Jeannie, Molly and Dodger. Dodger was an amazing in-hand show horse. He took me to places in-hand showing that I didn't know we were going to do. We went county shows. We done loads with him in hand. And then the time come to break him to ride. And he was fine to break to ride. Remember, I still haven't had any riding lessons at this point. We were breaking horses to ride just through like me and Steve getting on and trying to teach them. I had, well, it wasn't lessons, but when I was hacking out Jeannie, my mare, I used to hack out with another friend who was more of a dressage rider. So she'd give me lessons out hacking, like being on the right trot leg, the right canter leg, how to hold your hands, sit up, sit the canter. She'd give me lessons like that, but they weren't real riding lessons in that sort of sense. So we broke Dodger to ride and he was just petrified of everything ridden. So we spent a bit of time trying to get him used to life. You couldn't even walk over a trotting pole with him. He was just petrified and shot over it. So we were spending time riding him. And then I found out I was pregnant with Lewis. So just plodding along with life, had Lewis and trying to get Dodger used to ridden life. He was scared of his own shadow ridden, yet in hand he was perfectly fine. So we were just spending time with him. Still had Jeannie. So I was looking through the internet one night. This is when horse adverts then went online, and I fell in love with this 6-month-old black colt that part bred, again, full white socks. But I've had this dream that I was going to become a dressage rider. That's where I thought I was heading. So I wanted him to be my dressage horse. He was to make about 16, 17 hands. I fell in love with him off this one picture. Went to go pick him up. Couldn't catch him out in the field. He was basically wild. So we left, and they messaged us on the way home saying, basically, come and get him next weekend. He must go. So we got hold of the vets, got some sedatives, so that we went there the next weekend, gave him these sedatives to chill him out and a bit of food so we could catch him, load him up on the lorry and bring him home. That's where the journey with Alfie started. He was only young, so I was just plodding along doing the in-hand with Dodger, bit of ridden, showing, cross-country fun with Jeannie. Alfie was growing up, kids were growing up, and the time come to break Alfie to ride. And for a big horse, he was absolutely amazing to break to ride. Got him going, took him to a few dressage shows. We'd had him gelded as well at this point. He was far too big to keep as a stallion. So we'd had him gelded, took him to a few dressage shows, and he was mega. He was a very young-minded, but he had some talent behind him, I think. He was absolutely brilliant. I loved him to bits. And Dodger, sadly, we couldn't get him past this fear of life being ridden. So I was on the sidelines about selling Dodger. So we started looking for another palomino. I've decided by now palomino Welsh D was what I wanted. And we were looking at one palomino Welsh D from a dealer that fell through. Money was burning holes in my pocket, so we bought Willow. I'd seen his advert loads, but I kept pushing it aside because my dream by now was palomino, full white socks, Welsh Section D stallion. And Willow was gelding, so I kept pushing his advert aside. But horse prices had started getting higher, so we decided we'd buy Willow, break him to ride, sell him for a bit more, so we had a bit more budget for what I actually wanted. So got Willow home. He was 3, coming 4 years old. We bought him in the October, started breaking him to ride the following sort of spring, summertime. And breaking him to ride, he was absolute amazing. You could feel the talent in Willow straight away. So that's when I decided Dodger had to be sold. Couldn't get him past his being so scared of ridden. And Alfie, although would have made a lovely dressage horse, he was too big for this yard. By now, the yard owner had sold off some of the land to the neighbours, so the fields were getting smaller. We've got no arena. He was nearing 17 hands. You know, it was hard to get in the horse box because he was that big. So we decided to sell Alfie. We were going to spend our time, our focus on Willow because he was mega from the day we sat on him, basically. So everything got sold. Everything basically got sold. And then we were breaking Willow to ride. Brilliant. And then we saw Champ's advert. And I fell in love with Champ straight from a video. He was delivered down to me that weekend and fell in love with him. 6 months old. He was perfect. By now, Jeannie had started getting... I'd sold everything else except Jeannie. Jeannie was my heart horse that I was keeping forever. She wasn't going anywhere. But she'd started getting ill at this point. you could see some things weren't right. She was your typical chestnut mare. She'd throw in a buck. She was miserable, grumpy, everything like that, but her behaviour was getting worse. So we had vets come out and do some investigations with her, and sadly they put it down to neurological issues. She had a brain tumour that was now growing and pressing on something that was making her behaviour not what you want, really. And having the young kids, we decided the safest thing was to have her put down. As heartbreaking as it was the safest thing to do. So we done that. We had Champ, we had Willow, and the kids, now they're a bit older, the older two, and Steve wanted something to drive. So I was very much, I had plans for Willow and Champ still, even though Champ was young, I had plans for him at this stage. They were going to be my ridden show horses. I decided now that I'd taken Willow to a few local shows. I was hooked. This is where the turning point, I was hooked on ridden showing. So we decided to buy another horse for Steve and the kids to break to drive. And that's where Gambler come along. So we bought him purely, he is Steve and the kids' horse. It was them to do what they wanted with him. So then this is where life started to change a bit. Willow was winning the local shows. We'd started to do a bit more things with him, started to go county level. And that's where I then started having my first ever riding lessons. And it was great. Absolutely having so much fun, learning so much. All the horses were going well. Years gone by, with Champ, we'd broke him into ride, having fun. He was completely different kettle of fish. He was lively, bouncy and everything. And then we'd broke Gambler to ride. They'd broke him to drive. Everything was going well. Willow was now county level shows. Champ was just coming up, being, you know, newly broken horse. Gambler was doing the driving shows, and then Steve with work backed off from doing much with Gambler. The older kids had got older, they'd found girls and cars, so we then, Lewis turned Gambler into his in-hand horse. Done loads with Gambler in hand, absolutely brilliant. By this time I'd seen another advert online for Donut, fell in love with Donut. He was bred by a friend of ours, so we bought him. He come down here, he's still just growing up, being a baby. We've backed him slightly and then backed off, and now the weather's too hot that I don't want to get back on him again until the ground softens. But he's coming along and everything was going fine until suddenly one day we come down. Sadly, Champ was ill and we lost Champ to colic. We'd bought Pip, coloured traditional, for Lewis to bring on and do a bit of showing with, and then she was going to go on to be the grandkids' horse. And of course, not long after, if you've seen a few of the vlogs, like a week or two after, we actually found Ebby, which was always going to be Lewis's long-term in-hand show horse. So that, of course, now he wants to focus on Ebby. Gambler's taking a different route to be my ridden horse now. Willow's had some investigations and everything, and time and money spent on him. We sold Pip. That brings us to today with the 4 horses that we've got now. And what are my plans for these? Where are we going? Where do I see ourselves going with these 4? Over the years, what we've wanted out of a horse has changed. The look that we want from a horse has changed. So as we've evolved as people, as riders, as owners, the horses that I wanted over time has changed. But I am now completely happy with what these 4 horses can do for us, their look, their way of going, everything. Nothing needs changing now. Willow is doing the qualifiers, Horse of the Year Show, Royal International qualifiers. We've changed so much about him lately. Gambler is going from, he will still do some in-hand showing with Lewis, but they're limited to what they can do because of how much they have won in the past. So he is changing to my ridden show horse, backup ridden show horse. But also, ideally, I would like Lewis to do some ridden showing with him when we make him easier to ride. Because at the moment, he's not schooled, doesn't know what he's doing ridden-wise. So it's hard work. So I'm hoping when I make him easier to ride, it will be easier for Lewis. Donut, as I say, has been backed. But because of the weather, because of the ground, we've backed off because it's just rock solid out there. So hopefully as soon as we get some rain, we can get back on him to ride him. And Ebby, of course, is 2 years old. Lewis is in-hand show horse. But in time, I do plan to break her to ride and see what Lewis wants to do with her in time. But I am completely happy with how our ridden journey has gone. How life with horses has evolved and how I've progressed as an owner in what I want to look for in the horses. If I knew back then, years ago, what I do now, I possibly wouldn't have bought half the horses we did, but they've all taught me something on my riding journey. So I've needed each of them somehow to get me to where I am today. So all these horses we broke in ourselves, as I say, for the exception of Molly, the Connemara, but she had been broken in but left for 2 years, so we basically had to re-break her in. So I am still very much a self-taught amateur home-produced horse rider that's taught them all as much as I can whilst learning so much behind the scenes myself. I'm so grateful for the 2 owners, the 2 people that loaned horses at Steve's stepdad's yard for teaching me the basics all those years ago. And then my other friend had come hacking with me to teach me the dressage. She was more dressage, so being on the right canter leg, the right trot leg and everything. She taught me more in-depth the ridden showing ways. And then, of course, when we got Willow, I found my current riding instructor, but she's moved further away, so it makes it harder to see her, but I am going back to her more regularly now. So they've helped me along this journey with the horses, and I can't wait to see where the next years take us in this ridden journey. Do I plan to buy any more horses? Possibly one more. Champ was amazing, and I miss what he would bring to us. That he was a very hot-headed, like Ebby, hot-headed, lively Welsh D, and that is what the next step was that I wanted in the ridden show ring. Willow's amazing. He's taught me so much, but he's very laid back in the show ring. Champ was going to be that fiery ball of energy. So now we're bringing Gambler up to be the next ridden show horse. Again, he is very laid back. So hopefully Donut will bring more spice to it as well in the ridden show ring. But again, that's going to be times. Yes, I am half-heartedly on the lookout for another young very young. I like to do them from babies, from 6 months old, basically. Half-heartedly looking for another show horse, but not quickly. I might not find one for a year or two. I'm in no rush. I want it to be perfect for what I want now. So that's my riding journey. As I say, I can't wait to see where we go from here. And if you want to follow along with our journey on trying to see if we can get any of these to Royal International Horse Show or Horse of the Year Show, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon for the next one. Bye.